Hey everybody, this is Cooley McCoolson. I'm joined by Kiddens McCoolson, and
Hi.
we are Kids Are Not Toys. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Looks like we are live. We'll wait a moment for people to get in. We have been right, having some technical difficulties, but here we are. It's a hallmark of the show. This is like one of those speakeasies where you got to go through a bunch of hoops to see the show.
There we go.
Secret Knox. What up, Krasansky? SCO, Shelly. Mortal Kombat. Hillsy. This show ain't starting until I see cars in here. SCO, Shelly. Mortal Kombat. Hillsy. This show ain't starting until I see cars in here.
Sorry.
We're getting some feedback. Is that...
That's me. It's all me.
Oh, okay.
I was just trying to open it so I had chat so I could look at it and,
Oh.
computers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're tricky.
They tricky. Hey, me.
Tricky.
It's me. Look at me.
Hey, guys.
Look at me.
Hey,
Lily
yo.
Rose. Good to see you. So, yeah, we're off to a slow start. This should have been up and running. Hey, there's cars. Now we can start. This should have been up and running 15 minutes ago. Once again, we run into some technical difficulties, but we're not going to let that stop us. We got an important message to do. So I will introduce us once again. I am Cooley McCoolson. This is the amazing Kiddens McCoolson. And
Hi,
we're Kids Are Not Toys for those of us who missed it the first time. Hey, Tom, Braden. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, thank you very much. So today's stream is called Google Maps. Everyone saw that. Did you do your homework? Did you Google Maps?
We picked this stream on from the poll that we put out for you guys. Came in pretty strong. But I think like when we first started this idea for it, we didn't realize how incredibly in depth this topic goes. Like, yeah, there's, basic obvious stuff. But it goes so much deeper.
Mm-hmm. It really does. The more we deeper we dive, the deeper it goes. It's wild. We've had to pare shows down. If it were a Christmas tree and we got to pairing, it'd be a stick just going up by the time we were done with it.
It's an ocean without a shore.
An ocean without a shore. That's right, kitten. Shelly Shell says it's cute how Cooley says kittens. Yeah, it's either kittens or kittens.
Kitten.
Comes out both ways. So yeah, if you actually Googled maps, like used Google as a verb and did that, map is a somewhat new term for minor attracted persons is what the term is referring to. And what the term used to be and still is in many circles is pedophile or pedophilia. So Google Maps was a gentle piece of homework to go and Google Maps and see what's up with those guys. Right in cars. So we're just getting used to kind of running the show and looking at the chat, but I think today's going to be a lot more interactive. So especially as we're kind of moving on, feel free to interact. What up, Tommy 111?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry guys. I definitely had a hard time with reading the chat last time. So
yeah,
we'll do better.
Take some getting used to. We're going to do better. So today we're talking about maps and the normalization of pedophilia in society and culture. What do you think about that?
Well, so this sounds, obviously like a big topic, and it is. I think one of the most shocking things that I learned is how they truly define pedophile. It's actually a very, very narrow scope, which then makes you question about the stats that you have as well, if they're going off of the scope of the term pedophilia that it's listed as clinically. Yeah.
So what they did, the DSM is the manual that like psychologists go off of. They updated it in 2013. Up until the old DSM, DSM-4, it was pedophilia was listed as a disorder, basically a psychosexual disorder generally affecting adults characterized by a sexual interest in prepubescent children.
Mm-hmm.
In 2013, that was updated with the psychologists, and now pedophilia is not that. It's basically an adult that's attracted to a prepubescent child. The disorder is now reserved for those who have either assaulted a child, is my understanding, or these thoughts that they have about children affects their life enough that that it affects their ability for their day-to-day life and their work and that type of thing.
So they're doing the definition from how much it impacts your life, or if you've acted upon it. So it has a lot to do with the action of it impacting, which is very, very fine of a scope. And then also, not all people who abuse children sexually are by definition pedophiles. Just going by like the terminology that we have currently.
That is true, kittens. In fact, they say that only 40 to 50% of sex offenders who victimize children are pedophiles. The rest of them, what does that make the rest of them? Absolute monsters? Like,
yes.
if you're not solely attracted and fixated on children in that way, like you could be with an adult and be fine, but you still assault a child. What? What does that make the 50 to 60%? That's wild.
So I feel almost like they like narrow the scope down, kind of like to reduce the stigmatization. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, people that are by definition pedophiles. I mean, I guess they're the scariest of the scary, because they have no attraction for anything else but children.
Yeah. Yeah. And these new definitions, they actually do pretty much track. For those of you who don't know, I guess most of you here watching this live but I've been working with CPP for the last couple of years as a part of a catching team. And you would get a definite feeling when you're talking to these guys. Like some of them, when you're looking over the chat logs, this person is clearly solely into kids. And on some, you'd get another feeling, like maybe they're not just into kids, but they're into this kid for whatever reason. So certainly for the child, it would be just as dangerous, but it's really tough to describe. But I would get a different feeling on some catches. Like I'd see one person, I'd be like, this guy is dyed in the wool, all in for children, you know, and sometimes you get a different feeling with others.
Yeah. But they're saying that the people who aren't hardcore pedophiles, who are able to have attraction to someone other than a child, those have pedophilic instincts. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess the monster label really comes for when you're willing to act upon those urges, and that goes across the board. I mean, for me, and I'm sure it does for you guys too, anybody that's willing to act upon anything that would harm a child like that's a monster. They might not be a pedophile, but they're a fucking monster. So,
yeah, if you're willing to potentially set someone's entire life on fire for your gratification, it feels like monster to me. Like at least
monster status. Yeah. So, which I guess, and that's where this whole M.A.P.s thing comes up, because people automatically associate pedophile with child sexual abuser. And in the research that we were doing for this topic, there's, I guess, a large population of people who are by definition pedophiles who have not acted on their urges. which good for them, good for you. But
yeah, I hope that for all of them.
100%. But like,
it's not the case.
It's so scary, I think, because, you know, sexuality is such a ingrained part of our humanity and existence that, you know, those urges, yeah, you keep them down, like, but you're always going to be attracted to children. And I feel like that is a risk that just is always going to be there.
Absolutely. So. And as a parent, like, I don't want someone with those attractions, you know, within anywhere close to my children. Like, I don't think any parent would. So it's certainly a concern. It's certainly a problem. So we thought we'd just go into kind of what the pedophilia thing was about, if we're going to talk about it. On top of that is, so pedophiles are adults that are attracted to prepubescent children. As far as older children that are post-pubescent, there's hebephilia, and that's generally children between 11 and 14 or kids that have gone through puberty. So that's kind of what that definition is.
Yeah.
So but yeah, again, that's
it with, I mean, so I know that there's two different definitions, and that makes me sort of like, you know, for pre and post puberty, but that sort of makes me question, like, in society, who do we consider to be a child? Like in previous times, I mean, I don't know about your guys' grandparents or whatnot, but my grandma was 16 when she got married. Totally normal. Whereas now a 16-year-old, like, I barely feel safe with knowing that they're on the road. Like, right. I almost feel like the I don't know if it's a mentality or like the definition has kind of changed in of itself of like who's a child, who's considered a child, and you know, with that comes the ability to consent, because that's really what we're looking at here, is ability to consent in a sexual relationship.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And yeah, I'm in agreement. Any child, pre or post pubescent, certainly has no ability to consent, certainly not legally in most areas. With that in mind, I do want to congratulate Washington State. There are 5 different states that have one thing in common: California, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Washington. They all got something in common. Do you guys know what it is? At least they did until, well, just recently. The governor's going to sign off on it, I think, this summer. But what do those states have in common? I'm not seeing.
That's for pedos.
That's for pedos. Ooh,
you know,
that'd be a good start, John P. That'd be a good start. That'd have my vote. Tommy says 18. Shelly says, legalize castration. I feel like Bryden would know. Maybe he's holding out on us. So currently there are 5 states in the United States, and Washington is just now getting off that list, that has no minimum age to get married at all. None. So basically in Washington, currently you can marry at 17 with parental consent. If you get married at 16 and younger, you need a judge's consent. And usually that's
Vanessa, I wish.
That's generally if one of the parties are pregnant. But Washington decided, enough. We're not letting these kids get married anymore. And the governor's expected to sign it this summer. The new law will actually dissolve 5,048 child marriages in Washington that are in force right now. So that's going to be a thing of the past. Good job, Washington.
You know, it doesn't change the damage that's already been done, but
right.
Lawmakers a second chance. Yeah,
exactly. One note that I thought was interesting when we were researching that is lawmakers voted 48-1 to pass the bill to ban child marriage in Washington State. There was one holdout, and his name is Senator Jeff Holy, who is a former law enforcement officer who worked sex crimes. So he would investigate child sex crimes, and he was the lone holdout. wanted to keep child marriage in Washington.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
You would hope that somebody who has dedicated their life to investigating crimes like that, they'd be a little bit of a better advocate for children.
Yeah. But congrats to Washington. No longer can a judge say, hey, you're 10 years old. Yeah, you can get married. I think that's just gross.
I agree, John P. Good question,
right,
Jake Randall. Holla at him. Let's find out.
Why would you vote against that? That is interesting. And maybe he still is a detective and
good point.
To try it. I don't know.
Good point, Brian. Yeah, because we often see people put themselves in situations where they have access to children, but why wouldn't they also put themselves in a position where they would have some sort of control over like investigating and enforcing such things too? That's a really good point.
Yeah. Good job, Washington. Finally getting it together. Let's hope those other 4 are right behind him. What's next, kitten? Where are we going?
Let's talk about what you found on the International Commission of Jurists.
All right. So in 2023, a group called the International Commission of Jurists, was that it, kitten?
Right. International Commission of Jurists, yeah.
It is. Yep. So last year on Women's Day, there was a big kerfuffle on the internet because these guys released a report in conjunction with the United Nations. And in their report was a principle that they listed that they think all nations and states should follow. And what they said is, I'll just read what they said.
Yeah.
Consensual sexual conduct, irrespective of the type of sexual activity, the sex, gender, sex orientation, gender identity, or expression of the people involved, or their marital status may not be criminalized in any circumstances. So, yeah, you can't criminalize all these different things that people have no control over. Moreover, sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. So they were arguing that it may be factually consensual, like, the child may consent, even if it's not legal.
Yeah, they went on to say, endorsed by who? Just so you guys know.
This was, it was released in conjunction with the UN. United Nations. Yeah. So they said it may be consensual in fact, if not in law. In this context, the enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights and capacity of persons under 18 years of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. So if you heard about this, there was a big thing on the internet last year, and people were concerned that the United Nations was endorsing or rubber stamping basically adults having sex with children. Is that what your understanding was, Kiddo?
Yeah, we read about it, and so that was my understanding with reading it. The part that confused me is that they then had a bunch of lawyers counter it and say that's not what's being said. But I've read it over and over and over again, and that's exactly what it sounds like. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's really strange. They have come out, the ICJ, the International Commission of Jurists, which is lawyers, and the UN has come out and said, no, that's not what we meant. But the odd thing to me is that this was written by a bunch of jurists, a bunch of lawyers, and lawyers, they live on does or ands or commas or how things are stated, and it's just wild to me that something like this would be left so ambiguous that you could even think that that's what they meant.
I feel like it leaves a door open. It leaves a door open for leniency and acceptance of like just changing the definition of consent. Definition of, who has the ability to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, fine. Like you could read it a couple different ways and they backed off it, but like why leave the door open to something that huge?
Mhm.
Again, they've released a statement saying that that all laws that are in place, preventing children from having sex with adults should stay in place. And what did they say? Tom,
They didn't really clarify it. They just said that's not what it is.
Yeah.
Which is
they didn't really
sketchy.
clarify what it is that they meant. I can put the link to it down in the description after this. We'll make sure to get it in there so that you can see it. But they did. They said that's what they said. As certain people we know would say.
Wow.
But they did try and back off it. They didn't really try to change what they said. They just said that's not what we meant, which is really odd for a bunch of lawyers to leave things that ambiguous that you could mistakenly think they were talking about legalizing sex.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too. A lot of what we saw in the research that we were doing, as you guys know, I mean, if you ever watch any of the CPP chats that I'm modding in, I often say that child sexual abuse is apolitical. It's neither Democrat or Republican. It affects everyone. And I just, I don't think politics has a place for that, because a lot of them are questionable, shady characters. But with that being said, one of the ways that they were able to sort of silence the debate about some of this stuff is by labeling it like particularly extremist on one side or the other. It almost seemed like that was a conversation, a way to shut it down.
Yep.
So when they were sort of countering this thing, they made a very specific point of also labeling the people looking at it as right-wing conspiracy theorists type peoples, which I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, the wording speaks for itself. I hope you guys read it so you can sort of and maybe come to your own conclusion. But it's concerning. It's very concerning.
Well, particularly in things like this, when you're trying to influence, the world, like what all the different nation states should be doing, you should definitely be more clear no matter what you mean. I wish I had a note. So if you were to Google the ICJ statement regarding the 8 March principles, that's where you'll find that, just in case you guys are itching to go check that out. Before the show
you want to read some legal mumbo jumbo.
That's right. Legal mumbo jumbo that
for fun on a Sunday night.
That they recommend kids are fine to do that with. Yeah. So that's why. So that's something that happened last year. We thought it was interesting to the topic just because it's such a large organization with their recommendations. What up, Sam Squatch? Good to see you.
Ew.
So next up.
We'll start over for you, Sams. You want to start over, babe?
Yeah, let's start over. We were super late too, Sam. So you were double late to be this late. All right. So staying on the topic at hand, another thing that we were noticing when looking at this is that certain discussion over child sex abuse, certain content regarding child sex abuse mysteriously disappears from the internet. Specifically, YouTube is one case that things just start disappearing. And I experienced this myself over the past couple of years being part of a catch team, that being Colorado Pet Patrol. Our videos would start disappearing and later our channels began to disappear.
Yeah, it's like they were punishing people for talking about the kind of things that really need to be talked about that get silenced so often. And you're getting punished for discussing it like a concerned citizen would.
Punished for discussing it. Yeah, for supporting the cause of stopping or slowing the effect of child sex abuse. And we thought it was noteworthy. Like it's a part of the conversation. Why are things disappearing? Whether it be discussion about this, whether it be channels. What does Bryden say? He's got a similar channel. It's so hard to find news, and that's what I do. It's only certain news stations anymore. I've noticed that big time. Yeah, and I get that it's not a topic that's comfortable for people. That's that adults or or anybody really likes to engage in because it's not a comfortable topic. But at the same time, it's an important one. Yeah, it's our children that are being affected.
You just look at what's going on in the world. I mean, we just had a second child be murdered by a sex offender. We don't want to wait until we get to this point. We don't want to wait until we're searching for a child. Like
right.
It needs to be discussed. Like this stuff needs to be heard. And if the powers that be are removing access to it, and as Bryden says, awareness is key. We don't have any awareness. We have no way to know. And how do you protect against something that you don't know about?
Absolutely. Awareness is big. And like, in my opinion, where it goes with catching the catchers that are out there doing this is a big part of that. That's is awareness. Is a big part of that is awareness. And I wonder, if they're afraid of people realizing how big the problem is and getting really upset that this is just being swept under the rug and hidden from them.
Tom, yes, it is another narrative being controlled. I'm going to touch on that in a minute.
Yeah, it's another narrative being controlled. And for what reason? These platform companies are owned by large companies. If we wait, it's too late. That's right, Tommy. But they're owned by, billionaires. This is the new ruling class is these corporations. If they don't have the votes, they have the people in their pocket who do vote. And, it's just like for myself, it makes me wonder, are they afraid we're going to be catching their billionaire friends? Like, could that be a possibility? Or is it just that important for them to keep this out of the notice of the public? It's very odd. We do have one catcher, I think, around or over 1 million subs. And we would have multiple, I'm sure of it, out there doing catches and exposing if left, to go do their thing. It's very suspicious to me. Kidding. Did you want to touch on that other topic? What Tom had said, it's another narrative being controlled, or is that for later?
That's for later. But what Krasansky said about some international news sites. Yeah. I can't remember the name. There's an app that compiles the same news story from like different countries. We're not sponsored by them, but they sure could sponsor us if they really wanted to. I forget the name of it anyways, but it's an app that compiles like news sources across the world. And then that gives you an opportunity to be able to decide, about those news stories for yourself. That's just another tangent though.
You're fine. And with regard to these catch teams that are disappearing off the internet, in my opinion, I think these catch teams have a lot more in common with journalists than they do with vigilantes, which what I think these platforms are trying to paint these people that are doing this work as. And I'm one of those people. But I think there's a lot more in common with journalists and vigilantes. If these teams if they were a bunch of vigilantes, there'd be a bunch of people trying to meet kids that didn't have as many teeth as they did before. Like, I really feel like the focus is mostly on exposure. And it seems to me that must be what they're afraid of. But I don't know why. And every time they ban the channel, it's generally bullying and harassment is what they say. And it makes you wonder. Yeah. And it makes you wonder if there's other channels online that offer similar levels of disagreement, let's say. So a teen catches up with someone.
I mean, Chris Hansen's on YouTube all over the place. You can watch any of his catches at any point, and like we know for a fact that one of the people he caught, committed suicide afterwards. So why is it that, what's the difference? I mean, I love true crime, but some of the true crime channels, holy God, they're so gory. Like, it's things that I can't even bring myself to listen to sometimes. But you don't see them getting
channels
knocked down.
too.
Yeah,
prank channels, which seem to be harassment. Like someone was pranking a guy in a mall maybe 6 months ago and got shot in the stomach because he was on his YouTube channel live, messing with a guy in the mall. So I really wonder, it makes me wonder, like, if that is indeed what it is, if they're so afraid of bullying and harassment, or if there's more behind all that.
It just seems odd that they target specifically catchers so hard. I mean, maybe they do in other areas, other communities and such, but from what I've seen, it's pretty hardcore against catchers specifically. So.
And I did see recently, out of the catching community, there's someone who's actually going to YouTube headquarters like in a few days or something like that. His name's Ryan. If one of the mods has the link, you guys can post it. But Ryan of Fireside Chats, I think he's going to YouTube to see if he can get YouTube's attention and ask them why they're deleting catchers in specific channels.
It'd be nice if we could organize like a force of people to go in, because the more people you have, the more likely they are to listen. Right. I mean, you see that with the catches, like with Roni from CPP. Didn't give a shit about it in Weld County. Didn't give a shit until there was millions and millions of views. So
I think 30 million or so, 30 million and change probably. Yeah, that changed our tune real quick.
Yep.
So
I feel like that's how it is across the board, kind of.
Yeah, and that demonstrates why it's so important, for parents to see what's going on out here, that their kids are being approached like this online. And when you see it on the news, if you're watching Bryden's channel, he's got a great channel that blasts 40 or 50 predators every night. Bryden, you're welcome to drop your link if you want. And on his channel, I mean, there's teachers, and I completely forgot where I'm going with this, but it's very interesting.
There's no shortage.
Yeah,
but there's no shortage.
There's no shortage.
Mind blowing.
And parents need to know that that this is how easy it is for their children to do. To get caught up in this. Again, from a study that we saw in the last channel, 2 out of 5 children in a study who had an extended online relationship of a sexual nature with an adult, 2 out of 5 of them would go on to meet up with that adult. So it's a real problem. It's a very big problem, and exposure
Tom,
is what we need.
It is a private organization, but it's offering its platform as a source for news. And I think that when it comes down to that, when you give a space for journalists, you got to also allow a space for freedom of speech regardless. I mean, that's my personal opinion. The laws don't reflect that.
No.
But
well, the laws are more about protecting, the money and the financial interests.
Yeah.
And I think the topic of like catching of CSA is not exactly what advertisers want to throw their advertising money at. So, I mean, I get YouTube's reluctance to do that, but at the same time, when you're the size of YouTube and you're the only game in town, is there at some point when that's the only town square where people can gather to talk at some point, do they need to make other viewpoints available that they don't agree with?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the world is right now, is we are all connected globally through the internet. So to limit access, and I know it's not really, because you can go to other places, but it's not the same. It is limited access. YouTube kind of has a hold on that whole thing.
Yeah, they do have a hold, and it's
They got you by
where
the
people go to
balls.
watch videos, and they do go to other places, but not nearly in the same numbers. It's very difficult to get a following, on Rumble or Odyssey. It can be done certainly, but the numbers that YouTube gets as far as people are much more. The growth is way more explosive. Even private,
Yeah.
more voices change, less money, those changes.
Yeah, it limits, and that's concerning of itself, because not every investigation is going to be state sanctioned or state funded, and you don't want it to be either. You don't want the state to control the information that you're getting. So, which kind of leads us to our next topic.
What's that, kitten?
Soft power. So there's a terminology that I saw while we were researching. This is as described by an anthropologist. Soft power is the ability to indirectly influence behavior or interests through cultural or ideological means. So it's like power of suggestion. It's like the changing of social norms through suggestion. And one of the ways that this is most obvious, because it has a pretty long recorded history of this, is with Japan. So after World War II, Japan had a really poor image in the world. So they specifically decided to change the way their culture was viewed. And it's called soft power. And they did it through things like showcasing like cute art, like Hello Kitty, and like soft fashions, like stuff like that. They became more of like a fashion and, art industry, as opposed to, an empire. So, and you guys can see, how that's taken off. You now see Japan as, like, when you think of Japan, you don't think of like this empire that was colonizing the world. You think about anime or Hello Kitty, because she's personally just adorable. So it's an actual plan that's done to change the minds around a specific topic. So I feel like that's what's going on slowly, by the way that we're changing the definitions of pedophile, by the way that we're hypersexualizing children, and reducing our disgust through things like changing names, and trying to make it more acceptable within society. Which, I mean, if people can't control, who they are, you can only control your actions. But I think when it comes to having an attraction to kids, like you are a danger. You're a danger to everybody around you. Whether you want to be or not, it changes nothing. You're still a danger, because we're all just, safe as long as you have some self-control.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I wouldn't want my kids anywhere near anybody that was having feelings of attraction toward children.
Yes.
And
Brighton, exactly. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, Brighton, is the anime. There's
Lolicon.
let's see, Lolicon, Lolita complex characters. Those are characters that appear to be prepubescent. They can describe a character as young as an infant. A lolicon can also be used as an adjective to describe a person who's a fan of media that portrays sexualized young female characters. That's part of that culture. Is that right, Kitten? I was not terribly
it's a big part of the culture. And I read a really great thesis paper about this, which is where, a lot of the what kind of sparked my interest on this. But with the normalization of the cuteness aspect and the innocence and the youngness, that's also shown through like the lolicon, and some of the anime and such. Also comes, there is girlfriend experience, and JK business, which is actually teenage prostitution, like under the age of 18. Prostitution is a huge problem there. And in the thesis paper, it sort of examined like the correlation between all of the changes in the acceptance with minors and lolicon and such. And they did a study with CSAM, and every year there's been an increase for 12 years in a row between the amount of CSAM viewed and the amount or the popularity of things like lolicon. So that's a lot of terrible.
And they also have, you know, pretty considerably different values than we have in the US as far as like age of consent laws. The Kitten in her research, I didn't even realize, but the age of consent was 13 in Japan, depending on the region, but I believe it was mostly 13. And then it was changed from 16 to 18, depending on where you're at in Japan, in June of 2023. So that's 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah, there's been a lot of backlash. Yeah, right. And I Googled that.
Yeah, Brendan, Google thinks I'm pretty sus with the research I've been doing for this show. Like I've seen a few of those warnings that I've never seen before. I'm like, wait, what? Hey, Gabby. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of this, you know, popular things and culture that children, you know, are really interested in or influenced by are kind of what we were discussing, and they're coming from a culture with very different values as far as, you know, age and consent, or at least up until 7 or 8 months ago.
So with all of this comes like the changing of how people, you know, view such things, like the harshness in which they view it. I think a lot of this is from the increase in social media, just because we're teaching kids every day to post for likes, to like the most important thing they can do is have somebody like what they're doing, saying, looking like. And I mean, it's a dopamine kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really wild. Like, and I'm dating myself a little bit here, showing how old I am, not dating myself. But like when I think back to when I was in high school, and cell phones, they had them, but they were in a suitcase, you know, that you carried around. And so when school was out, like you were done trying to be popular. You were done fishing to do things that people liked, you know, to gain respect or admiration of people, or to increase, you know, your status within school or whatever. And these kids, once school's out, they got another 6 or 8 hours of social media to conduct and prune. In many cases, certainly not all kids are doing that, but it's not uncommon, I don't think.
Yeah, and like with the numbers that we talked about last week, grooming is incredibly prevalent. Yeah, for kids nowadays, it's a huge problem.
It
so
is.
As much as they're on like social media, they're most likely getting groomed as well.
Social media, dating apps. And it's really interesting that like the people that are grooming these children for nefarious purposes, they're pretty much saying, hey, I like you. You know, I mean, it's another like, it's another dopamine hit. You
You're
know,
beautiful.
It's maybe something.
You're so beautiful.
Yeah, you're beautiful. You're getting attention that you don't normally get in your everyday life and family. And that can be really, you know, interesting to kids. And it's scary. It's terrifying, actually. Yeah.
Well, it can even be addicting because it is a dopamine hit each time. I mean, that's a proven fact. So
yep.
that's scary. Yeah, and it's. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So yeah, researchers do say that American children spend about 4 to 8 hours a day on consuming some sort of entertainment media. So that's rather, one of the social sites, probably the streaming sites as well, but certainly social sites are high on that, I think.
Yeah, and the sexualization of children by in culture, society, in the media and such, is not only dangerous for the children that are in these images or the children that are on social media, but also parents are opening up their children to some very scary stuff. I don't know if anybody's heard about Ren Eleanor. I mean, I don't know, what nefarious things are behind her TikTok account, but there's a mom who's been posting all sorts of images of her young child. And
On TikTok, is that right?
on TikTok, I think TikTok and like Instagram and stuff. But she specifically has comments that are in that are about each picture that are it's grown men saying terribly sexual stuff about her daughter.
And her daughter's a toddler, isn't that right?
A toddler, yeah. And she's got millions of followers, so she's trying, and like the videos are saved and everything, so like she's trying to keep that algorithm up because that's money in your pocket. But she's doing like she did like a video where her daughter was like, she asked her daughter where a tampon went. She'll do like bath videos of babies wearing like a little, like she's not nude, but that pedophiles are watching your child. That's a weird thing to put out there. Like it's concerning. It's like almost like selling your child's image.
Well, it's really
that are
odd,
going to do real gross stuff. Yeah.
In this day and age, as people are fond of saying, like, but that people, predators really are out there. And my glasses are a little colored by helping out CPB for the last couple of years, but the fact that someone would have their toddler child kind of have their own channel with millions of followers like that and have her exposed in that way, like,
yeah, she has a video of her eating a hot dog.
Wow. Yeah, it's really concerning. Like, personally, I prefer not to have my kid on social media, but having an account with millions of people watching her as a toddler, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You wonder where the values are at.
French range mamas, right? Yeah, it's exploitive. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, but if you're curious, look into it. If you just Google Ren Eleanor, you'll find about 1 million articles. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's another thing I didn't find out until our research. And I do thank you guys again for joining us and letting us kind of learn with you guys, because this has been very eye-opening experience.
Oh my goodness, we have so much more to cover. I do have movie tickets, so I only have about 10 more minutes until I gotta scoot.
She got a scoop. She got a boot scoop.
Sorry, I'm going to go see Dune with my son. So priorities,
That's right. So yeah, media. Let's continue on. Balenciaga. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Balenciaga.
I'm gonna get clipped.
So Cooley wasn't familiar with this, but I'm sure that most of the people in this chat probably are. You guys know the Balenciaga saga? Maybe.
It takes a little while there.
Shelly Shells does. Yes. Kamal says no. Yes, says Brayden. So they are a luxury clothing brand. I mean, like ridiculously expensive luxury bullshit, quite frankly. But that's my own opinion. But very luxury clothing brand. They have sponsors with like Adidas, and then with Kanye and Kim Kardashian, which, yeah. But the big controversy comes from one of their ad campaigns, actually two of their ad campaigns. Yeah, so they had teddy bear purses, and the teddy bears were dressed up in bondage gear, whatever. That's kind of whatever, to each their own. But the problem is, yeah, sure. That's, do you. But the problem is that they used very young children to model these teddy bears that were dressed in BDSM gear. So who is it that they're trying to associate this with? You know, like, why kids? Like, is it meant for kids? I don't know. So there's a lot of question with that. Now, you know, maybe that was a poor decision. I don't know. Maybe it was. Problem is that that's not the only one that is questionable. Yeah. So they had another shoot, which was done by a different photographer, designer, and like part of like the company. And in this photo shoot, there was no models. It was just the products on a table, but hidden underneath real discreetly, just sitting there, was a court decision, which I forget which one it is, but which essentially limits, what was I trying to say with that, babe? Limits the
yeah, you were trying to say that there's a paper just sitting discreetly in this photo shoot of the court decision that struck down 1998 bill that had pretty much prevented, what was it?
The pandering. The pandering of child pornography, or CSAM, as we are trying to make the norm for calling. So what that means is, if decreasing, like with pandering, what that is there's not a real child. So it's the concept of trafficking images that may or may not be of a real child. And I don't know, that's still gross.
It's an odd thing to add, you know, especially when you're presumably advertising, you know, to make money and to gain customers, but what an odd thing to add into it.
Yeah.
Both of those stories obviously got attention in the media. People were upset, you know, with good reason.
Shelly Shells, exactly. It was exactly like they were rubbing our noses in it. And like, yeah. And I would say, you know, they try to sort of explain it away as, you know, bad choice here, bad choice there. It's just, one was so blatant and one was so nonchalantly concealed. It just, yeah. AI images or not, it's wrong. I'm super anti-AI images of children. Yeah. That's a concern. An upcoming
they're illegal
concern.
federally, as far as I know, AI images.
Of children, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what the court case was referencing. That was in that photo shoot. But when it got struck down, they did another one, which was actually the Amber Alert law that remade depictions of children, even if they're not actual children, against the law. But it looks like we're going to have to get kittens out of here. We did have some more great stuff. Yeah.
Can we do the Kentucky one real quick? I got 8 minutes.
Oh,
just because it sort of goes along with this. Oh crap! Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just fine. I was gonna say, but before we go, well, I didn't realize you had 8 minutes. I thought you had 10 minutes, like 6 minutes ago. Okay. Well, sorry to ruin the party, but I thought you had to go. Yeah. So. Sorry, guys, I ruined the flow. I made the show late with my technical difficulties, and then I ruined the flow. Well, I guess busted it up. So let's do this video of Kentucky Senator Berg yesterday saying that she thinks Kentucky citizens should have access to child sex dolls. Let's see here. Oops. Technical
completely
difficulties.
Unfamiliar with child sex dolls. So I had, of course, to Google it last night. So a little scared to put it in my search engine, but I did. And apparently there is research on the subject. Not much, but there are what they call M.A.P.s, minor attracted persons.
This
And the
was, I think, 2 days ago.
Amount of research that's done on these dolls, guys, suggests that they actually, for people who are attracted to minors, that these dolls actually decrease
Study doesn't show
their
that.
proclivity to go out and attack children. That it actually gives them a release that makes them less likely to go outside of their home. And what was interesting is the research did not support the same conclusions for people who were adult attracted using dolls. That did not diminish their proclivity to engage other people, but for those with the, so I'm just a little concerned that, and like I say, the research is not very good. It is not comprehensive, but the research that is out there is conclusive.
That's
not very good.
Works.
Not comprehensive, but conclusive. So there are certainly idiots in politics. This is nothing new. What a horrible idea. Jeez.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That'd be an awkward conversation at dinner. It's like, your wife.
There's a story about a mom in Florida who she accidentally found a child sex doll on Amazon that looks exactly like her young child. So they're getting they're like creating these dolls off of something, off of an image, off of a child. And that in of itself is just, that makes me want to vomit. Like, if that was my child, oh my God.
It's horrible. And that's going state by state right now. Those child's child, size and shape and looks sex dolls they are starting to get banned by a lot of states, but apparently that Kentucky senator thought it'd be a great idea to provide them to their citizenry for free to help prevent the problem.
So if you live in Kentucky, let her know how you
make
feel
some
about
calls.
that one.
That's horrible, but that was just a couple, 2 or 3 days ago. The backlash has, as you can imagine, been pretty swift and strong on that one. I saw it on Bryden's channel last night, which Bryden has a great channel. 40 or 50 Preds exposed every night, guys. Check him out. Make sure you drop
someone drop that link.
We
try to be there like every night that it's there, unless I'm sleeping, which is also a thing.
So if you want to hang out with us, go hang out at Bryden's, hang out here. We're always happy to see you, and you'll catch us over in CPP as well. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Kittens, did you have anything else?
I have so much more, but I really,
I do too. We got good stuff we didn't get to, but we'll put them into different shows. And we didn't manage our time today. I'm working out how to get the show to actually launch after I've scheduled it. 2 out of 2 times it doesn't go, but I do want to thank everyone for joining us. It's really great. I appreciate your support and your views and your clicks and your likes. We got to get the word out, guys. We're going to learn about this to make ourselves into more effective weapons against people who are doing CSA, against people that are doing the CSAM. And we hope to bring you along with us, and maybe you'll be more effective weapons too, as you learn. So,
we cannot allow this to become a normalized behavior. Empathy for people, sure, I can have empathy for people, but don't hurt our kids.
Don't hurt the kids. Kids are not
don't
toys,
hurt the kids.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great night, and
thank
we'll
you.
see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.